Twisted Christian. Today I want to discuss about the central banks and how they're all working in unison together to stop something that might be coming. But not only do I want to discuss that, but I also want to discuss other events as well when you saw the central banks move in unison together. And so there's just a lot of interesting things that I've seen in the news in the last couple of days as I'm actually able to get up and try to do some research on what the central banks are doing over the last several days. So I will get into that. Now first, I'd like to thank you guys for your support on Patreon. If you guys go there, like I said, the dollar access is going to go away. And so you guys need to get in. We're going to be discussing a lot of the things that I've discussed about Kim Clement's 8 wells. And also too about different energy stocks, U.S. oil stocks and so forth. Especially I try to look for really good stocks. What I try to look for is really good stocks that used to be over $1, but now recently or in the last 4, 5, 6 months, they've become under $1. Some of the stocks that I've put up there were at maybe $11 or $4 or $8, and because of the climate of the oil industry and everything else, those stocks haven't had the chance to really go back up to where they were. And so that's what I'm looking at. In every stock I post, if they have a reverse split coming, I make sure to try to put that information in there because every stock is a high risk investment. So whether you're spending 14 cents a stock or 50 cents a stock, it's all a risk. But what I'm doing is I'm doing wells. And so the difference between this well and say the dinar well, there's mostly the one thing, the dinar. You can go buy it, you can go get it. You don't have to do a lot of research into it, maybe research on where to buy it from. But when it comes to the oil industry, there's a lot of stocks that you have to look for. You have to dig deep for. So, and you got to look at to see their company growth. Why did they fall back under $1 and, from where they were at, and you just do all those different things. Was there scandals or anything else going in? So I try to provide the best research and what to look for. There's plenty of stocks out there, but a lot of them don't have what I think it takes to recover back to getting their stock back over $1. So when I do post a stock, then I will try to make sure that I think it's one that's going to do very decently. So I also post articles so you guys could do your also research when you look at some of the hot spots in the United States, where the oil wells are at and where the mining is at and everything. I just wanted to make sure that that you guys know that when I post these things, that I've done some pretty decent research, and then I hand it off to you guys to see if there's anything else that might be out there before I really start investing or tell you guys to invest, because you always want to do your research. Just don't research based off of what one person says. All right, now back to what we're getting ready to get into. Now, one of the things that I noticed, and I'll just read this article real quick. I'm not going to read the whole article. Global central banks are in a rate-cutting frenzy. Here are the other 7 meetings coming up this month and what's expected at each. So they talk about all these different countries that are cutting their rates together. They're all doing this in unison together. They're all having meetings. They're all discussing rate changes and everything else, right? And here's another article. Down they go. Emerging central banks deliver most rate cuts in a decade. Emerging market policymakers slashed interest rates in August, taking their lead from major central banks in the U.S. Federal Reserve and the ECB in joining efforts to shore up their economies. Not only do we have central banks, but also emerging markets that are coming, they're also cutting rates. And all the banks, like I said, they are working together. And then here's another article from the Korea Times. Central banks struggling to fight recession. Central banks and major economies are rushing to implement expansionary monetary policies in a collective move to preempt a much dreaded recession. So I was reading these articles and I'm trying to figure out, okay, they're all moving together at the same time. Now, and it reminded me of some different times when it seemed like all the central banks were moving together. Now, so we're in a time period now where they're trying to stop something from coming, right? They're all working together. It's not just a couple central banks. It's multiple central banks, right? In multiple countries, they're cutting interest rates because they think that there's a recession coming, and they're trying to do what they're trying to cut the rates in order to stop something. And that's one of the things is and I'll pull it up here, but the world is in $244 trillion debt. And what got us to that point? Well, our current banking system, our current central banking system, right? Not all the debt, not every single dollar is attributed to the central bank, but there's $244 trillion worth of debt in this world. That means governments, people, everybody, somebody, somewhere, every country somewhere, every business somewhere owes the banking system $244 trillion. And this is what I mean, basically, to me, the way I look at it is this thing is getting ready to implode, right? And they're just trying to stop the inevitable, because the system that we're currently on right now, it's not good for countries. It's not good for emerging countries. It's not good for poor countries, because obviously it hasn't benefited them. But they're trying to fight what we've been talking about. Maybe this is going to lead up to the crash, because in another video I talked about how, well, do we need a crash in order for the currency reset to take place? And why should we fear a recession? Why should we fear the central banks imploding? Right? So maybe this is a good thing. Maybe this is, if the world markets are going to go down, if a lot of these heavy hitter internet companies are going to go down, and they kind of drag some of the market down together, they drag some of the markets down, then so be it in order for this to happen. But they're trying to keep a system that's going. They're trying to keep a system active under the guise of $244 trillion in debt. And it's not going to happen. It would be impossible to pay that debt. And that's what the whole banking system has been, right? It's been a slave to debt. Whether if you're a country, company, or individual, it's a slave system. So I just find that interesting, that they all are working in unison together to try to stop maybe something that we actually need to happen. Okay? And I find this article interesting because it comes from Deutsche Bank CEO. And it says right here that the CEO, Christian Sewing, warns that central banks are running out of options to mitigate the global economic risks. Right? And that, see here, it says, Deutsche Bank CEO warns central banks have no tools left to cushion a real economic crisis. It says central banks have used their tools to a largely extent already and are running out of options to mitigate the impact of the global economic risks. Deutsche Bank CEO warned on Wednesday. Okay, so basically they can't do any more to try to keep this global glutton machine going. This machine that has hurt economies, that has hurt countries, it's hurt individuals, it's caused wars. It's kind of interesting coming from his bank, from the bank that he runs too as well. As you already know, there's a lot of predictions concerning that bank. And maybe he knows something that, obviously that we don't know, or, we can see it forming. So I just find that interesting, and tell me you guys your thoughts on that, because this is where the dinar and the global currency reset comes in. Now, there's been some other times when they worked in unison too as well, right? And I've showed you this in many videos before with gold. Back in 2010 through 2014, there was a huge gold buying spree by the central banks, all of them or most of them, right? And then that trend kind of went to a downturn for a little bit, but in 2018 and 2019 have been huge years for central banks buying gold. And they're all working in unison together to make sure to grab as much gold as they can. So I find that very interesting. I think in a video I made last week about Turkey, they bought like 10 tons of gold in 1 month, over 10 tons of gold just in 1 month. So they're trying to stop something. And what is that something? Are they trying to prevent an economic crash in order for the global reset not to take place? I find that interesting. And there's the other times they worked in unison when they came out against the cryptocurrencies, right? All the banks were saying, don't invest in cryptocurrency. We should outlaw cryptocurrency. We should do this with cryptocurrency. And then they even got like some of the social media people, like Facebook, that don't invest in cryptocurrency. Some of it's, there's scams and stuff like that. Only to find out that in unison, they've been working together. The central banking system have been doing test runs of their own cryptocurrency, just like Facebook did. Remember when they did that? They banned these crypto commercials, and they were, restricting people's posts who were posting about cryptocurrencies. But then yet they do all that and then turn around and come out with their own. So I find that very interesting that the banks, they all work together to downplay cryptocurrencies, to try to get rid of cryptocurrencies, and even got governments to ban cryptocurrencies, right? Or restrict it heavily. But then yet at the same time, they were developing their own cryptocurrencies, right? They were using some central banks were actually was actually a test market in some countries, and then they would turn around and let the other banks know their findings and all that other stuff, right? A lot of banks were waiting on some of those reports before they decided to get into the cryptocurrency market. So I find that interesting, but they were also in unison going against the cryptocurrency market. And they're just lining up right now just to release their own cryptocurrencies, right? China and several other countries, we're ready. We can do this. See, behind the scenes, they were working on it. But in public, they were trashing cryptocurrencies, right? And of course, the other thing that they've always worked in unison for is the making sure that we have trillions of dollars worth of debt. It's one thing that they've never stopped doing, piling the debt day after day, month after month, and year after year. So guys, we need to keep watch. Let's keep our eyes on the central bank. I think that if a global recession does happen, it's going to give the authority to a lot of presidents or prime ministers of nations and say, we need a new system. The system is not working. So I think that this could be leading up to something, right? In unison, they're trying to stop something. Right? Do we want them to stop it? When we've discussed this, do we need this global crash so that the currency reset could take place? We looked at prophecies, we looked at other things concerning all of that. We try to put all the pieces together, right? Even people who aren't religious or don't believe in any prophecies, they presented evidence that this central banking system, it's getting ready to explode, and this new global currency reset is going to take place. So tell me what you guys think below in the description. And let's just keep a watch of the central banks and see where this whole thing plays out, right? I think this is part of the soap opera that we're watching. If whatever they do fails, everything is going to fall back on the central banks, and you're going to see a change come out of this when the global reset does take place. They're ready. A lot of countries have gold. I think they need a lot more gold. In my opinion, even if the price of gold does go up to 5, 6, 10,000, I think all the countries still need more gold. That's just my opinion. But we'll see. I try to take a look at the gold report every month and see which countries are buying gold, and we'll just go from there, and we'll just keep a watch. Tell me what you guys think below in the comments. Don't forget to check out the Patreon and all the different links, and don't forget to get signed up for the different trading platforms so you guys can put yourself in a position you guys might be able to experience some of these things from these wells that we're digging. And with that being said, Twisted Christian out.